We're going to do a pre-trip on a T680 Kenworth. Here we have our air filter housing, cannot be cracked or broken, no leaking, securely fastened to the firewall. We'll come down to our fuel filter housing, securely fastened to the engine, cannot be cracked, broken, or leaking. This is our oil fill, our oil check. Back here in the back we have our air compressor, securely fastened to the engine, cannot be cracked, broken, no leaking. It cuts in at 90 to 100 psi and cuts out at 120 to 125 psi. On top of that is our primary air line, which goes back to our primary air tank, securely fastened to the frame, cannot be cracked, bent, or broken, no man-made welds, no leaking. It has a 150 psi safety relief valve to protect the system if something happens to the air compressor. Also has a one-way check valve. If something happens to that primary air line, it breaks, that valve will shut, letting you have 2 to 3 brake applications before you run out of air. Over here we have our fuel water separator, securely fastened to the frame, cannot be cracked, bent, or broken, no leaking. Coming over here we have our alternator, securely fastened to the frame, cannot be cracked or broken. Below that is our AC compressor, securely fastened to the engine, cannot be cracked or broken. Here we have our power steering reservoir, cannot be cracked, bent, or broken, no leaking, securely fastened to the engine. Above that we have our charge air cooler line, cannot be cracked, bent, or broken, no leaking, securely fastened by clamps, which must also be securely fastened, no leaking. Above that we have our windshield washer reservoir, cannot be cracked, bent, or broken, no leaking, securely fastened to the radiator. Then we have our charge air cooler, cannot be cracked or broken, no leaking, no man-made welds, securely fastened to the radiator. We have our radiator, cannot be cracked, bent, or broken, no leaking, no man-made weld, securely fastened to the frame. We have our fan shroud, cannot be cracked, bent, or broken, securely fastened to the radiator. We have our fan blades, cannot be cracked, bent, or broken, none missing. We have our serpentine belt. You check it by pushing in on that belt. If it goes in more than 1/4 of an inch, it needs to be replaced. That belt cannot be cracked, broken, taped, or frayed. Stop.